People often say the hardest part of running a business is just starting, but honestly, once you get past that initial fear, starting is the easiest part. The real challenge is the messy in between. Your first launch has gone great, and then the hype fades, the friends and family support maybe drops off, and suddenly it's about turning real customers into loyal fans. That stage takes belief, consistency, and picking yourself up every single time you fall, especially when you're creating a path that maybe no one around you has taken before. I've made almost every mistake in the book on my journey, truly learning as I went along. So in this video, I'm sharing some of my mistakes, so maybe you don't have the same struggle.
Okay guys, we are going to go straight into all of my mistakes and hard lessons learned. But before we do, I just wanted to give a quick little intro to myself, especially if this is your first time on this channel. Thank you so much for being here, first of all. If it's not your first time and you're coming back, also thank you so much. I know it's been a while. But yeah, my name is Grania. I run a roller skate, surf and swimwear brand called Subtle Poison. And I ran it in Ireland for about 3 years, up until last year when I moved the entire brand and myself to Bali, which in itself has brought about some of the things on this list that we're going to talk about today. I just wanted to make this video because I don't regret the way that I've built my business, but I definitely think there's a storyline that like building a business and having a business has to be this horribly hard journey. And don't get me wrong, like it absolutely is. Everyone has their own journey and you do have to make mistakes to learn from them and be even better. But there's some that like make me think, had I have known these things 4.5 years ago or 5 years ago when I was getting my designs ready and wanting to start, maybe I'd be further along now if I had known these things 5 years ago. So let's get into them. First one I have, and I think this is genuinely the most important, and even if you're like at a phase where you're kind of like stuck with your business and you don't know where to go with it, like inner work and so much self-worth and self-confidence work needs to be done. I always thought I was confident because I always wore crazy colors. I knew exactly who I thought I was. Like I was the girl that like rocked around Dublin in mad outfits when nobody else did. Like I thought I had undeniable self-confidence, but honestly, it's so interesting to me because I was like, I always knew, okay, I'm gonna get 10,000 followers on Instagram. I'm gonna get 20,000 followers on Instagram. And as soon as I hit 10K, I was like, okay, sweet. Almost made it to 20. And what I find so interesting that I'm like, slightly kind of trying to unpack now is like I feel like so much of my self-confidence like went to the floor as soon as I started my business. And that was also when on my personal Instagram I started losing followers. And I think that literally comes down to the fact that like I had no confidence when it came to my product, and I think that comes from my perfectionism. I am a control freak. It's why I had an eating disorder in my past, and I really struggle with not being good enough, which is where the perfectionism comes in. So I think for me, what that led to was I was so happy to promote other brands and I did it really well. And don't get me wrong, I do think I promote my brand well, but like energy never lies. And I think for me, there was always, even up until this latest collection that I've just brought out, I think for me there's always a sense of like I could do better. This isn't my best work. What that leads into is this fear of like, of course it's not going to sell because like it's not good enough. Like, even though I adore my products, I'm so proud of everything that we've brought out. I also just noticed yesterday that like this year alone we've had like a 41% customer return rate, which means that like almost half of our customers from previous years have come back, which is so cool and crazy and makes me think like, look how much of a good job you're doing. Like people love it so much they want to keep coming back. But still in my mind, like even when we released this collection I'm wearing the pants from, I knew this was some of my best work. But still in my mind there's like this fear of like, oh, this could be better. I think for me as well, I have such a giant fear of failure and such a giant fear of like never being good enough. And even something that I'm doing the artist way at the moment, and something that I've like really started to uncover with myself is like, I was growing up, like both of my sisters were world champion Irish dancers, and I never reached that level because I started at a later age. It was more difficult for me, like blah 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 blah. So I wanted to like do pantomime, and that came easy for both of my sisters. And I think it's like a level of conditioning that I'm only starting to unpack, that like it just felt so unfair that things came easier to them. And it's even the same way that I feel like when I look at other people in businesses and starting much later than me and getting much quicker success, it's the same trigger that I feel as back then. But what does that come from? It comes from like my perfectionism of like never feeling good enough or not feeling like my product is good enough. And like, again, I can adore my product because I do, but energy does not lie. And if you have this fear-based energy navigating your entire business, like your product is not going to sell, because energy does not lie. It's been really interesting for me to like uncover all of this, especially because I feel like the past year of operating my business in Bali has been from such a fear-based place, especially because I haven't done as much content creation work, so I've been so financially reliant on my business, and that obviously creates like a fear as well. But also even just the fact that like before I left, like there was people always had questions, how are you going to make it work, like what are you going to do, like what are you going to do if it doesn't work? And again, I think because that happened before, like I moved here 4 years ago and tried to make it work and it didn't work and I had to come home. Like I came here with this fear of like, what am I going to do if I have to go home? Especially because for me this time it's not really an option. I'm doing so much inner work right now, just like affirmations. I have affirmations all over my fridge about like my creativity. Like I'm a vessel of creativity that's like put on this earth to like make everyone in this world wear more color and spread more joy by wearing color, and just reminding myself of that rather than operating from this place of like I don't have enough, like I can't support myself, like blah 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 blah. Much self-work, self-confidence is required, especially because like the easiest part of starting a business is starting, and you'll have friends and family that support it, but then when they start to drop off, and then your sales, like if you have like a bad drop or a bad release or like a bad few months or a bad year, you have so many people in your ear telling you that you're crazy for continuing. Like, what are you doing? Like this isn't a good idea. The only person in the world that wants this to 100% work is you. It doesn't really matter to everybody else. Of course, people that support you, like they want it to work out for you, but having to keep picking yourself up every single time that you fall, it requires so much self-love, so much patience, so much kindness to yourself, and so much belief in what you are doing. That if you don't have that, forget about it. But that's why I say roller skating is a great hobby, because it teaches you to fall and how to get back up again. Inner work is the foundation. Building a business in itself is a self-development journey. It is a spiritual path that will break you down into so many different shards of pieces that you just have to pick back up and figure out the best place for them all to go. Regardless of how difficult that is, it is also beautiful. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog scratching her ears. The next one that I have, and I think this kind of only really applies to, like, I obviously was working as an influencer before I started this. I just have like separate the other work that you've done relative to the business and treat it as brand new. And I think more what I mean by that is the structures behind it, and also like how you're going to retain your customer and blah blah blah. And I do have like strategies and stuff mentioned later, so I think we'll go more into that then. But I think for me, I relied so heavily on my personal brand, bringing in a lot of our customers, which it was great, especially in Ireland. And it's been crazy to notice the difference in like having an audience somewhere and having a business, and not having an audience somewhere and having a business, because like I think I didn't take that into consideration when I moved the brand from Ireland to Bali. Like obviously I had my close circle of friends here in Bali, but like beyond that, like it's been really hard to find new audiences and figure out the ways in which people shop, and I'm still figuring that out. Yeah, for attracting customers using my personal brand was great, but like for retaining them and turning customers into long-term customers and long-term lovers of the brand, you need different structures in place. Like you need a full marketing funnel from like meta ads, email marketing, the socials, like group chats, like all of these things, there has to be like a full marketing funnel. And I think for so long I just saw the presence that I already had on social media as my marketing funnel, and that's just simply not really enough. Okay, the third one that I have is to document absolutely everything. And I know that that's a little bit contradictory to me saying like don't rely on your personal brand audience. It's more about separating the marketing funnels, is where documenting everything. Like I think founder-led content is so important because people love to see the process. And also I think especially when it comes to building up your audience, like people like to see a full process from start to finish. And I am so sad sometimes that like this was like not a thing when I was building my brand. Again, I had my personal Instagram and I had the Subtle Poison Instagram and I had the TikTok, but like I didn't really use it. I didn't know that this was like a thing, and I don't really think it was much of a thing back then. People being able to get on board with every step of the journey is so cool to see. My friend said to me last week, like, you should make more of the videos about how the pieces are made. I loved watching those. And really, wow, cool. Like, yeah, I need to think about that. So document absolutely everything. But even something that I've been trying to get better at is just like snapping every single day, like taking photos of everything, like the still life content, not just like the planned nice reels. Like if you are running a brand by yourself, you're not really getting that many days off. So document it all. People do like to see people win. It builds community, and I know that can be a bit of a marketing buzzword. So important when you are building a brand is starting with a small range of products in each drop and figure out what does well. So I think most things that I have, most collections that I've released like since day one, a lot of the time had like say 2 co-word sets and then 1 other piece. I don't think that was absolutely necessary, especially if you're like starting with like a smaller budget. Finding like a hero piece, so even if you only have 2 or 3 products per drop to begin with. When we first brought out the first collection, jumpsuits, everyone loved them. They were so fun, they were so cute. Even 2 years later, when I was having stock issues, I was able to just restock those. We did them in 2 other colorways as well. With great when you find a product like that, because it saves you having to redesign loads of different pieces every year. And if you can just have a hero piece, because sampling is expensive, it's going to save you so much time and so much money. Also, obviously as well, as soon as you figure out those products, you can just build from there. And then when you have products that you know are always going to be on your website and selling that you can restock, then you can kind of use the cash flow from them to kind of experiment with new products and hopefully building new hero products as well. So next one is your email list, and I really wish I had just like educated myself so much more before I started my brand. But like, I started my brand in COVID. I think everyone was kind of starting a business of some sort, and because they were bored. Please no one laugh at me, but when I started my business, any of our like abandoned cart emails, they all came from Shopify emails. It wasn't until I think a year into running my business or 2 years into running my business, I started working with a social ads agency. I was doing content for them because I'd run out of money. Love that for me. I was working with them, and then when we were working with other clients that had fashion brands or brands similar, and they were using Klaviyo email marketing, I thought, what is this? Then I got it for myself. But even email marketing, there's mistakes that you can make in that, because I didn't even know up until this year that if people don't, if you have the double opt-in option on and people have signed up to your newsletter, they haven't actually signed up until they actually fully join in your email. So I had like over 1,000 profiles or something like that in my email, but only like 100 people on my newsletter. Because we have changed that now, but if you are using Klaviyo, definitely take note of that, because even in the last while, like I've re-engaged some of the people that hadn't double opted in, and yeah, we've like tripled the opens on our email list only in the last month or so. So the importance of the email list, because I don't really think I knew the importance, because I think also for me, I always felt like emails were just so annoying. Certain brands that I loved opening, so say for example Elsie and Fred, I always used to open and read their emails, and I think what's interesting is the kind of structure that they had with their emails is very similar to what I have with my emails. Of course, sometimes we'll talk about new products and sales. The email list is my place to nurture my community. It feels like my secret little world with the Subtle Poison Fairy Mermaids. In this Black Friday, I had a full schedule planned because I paid for a Notion template, ideas and blah 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 for Black Friday. That probably works for like a fast fashion brand, but that's not me. That's not who I am or who my brand is. My brand is slow, community-led. People in our community, I think they value that so much more than sale. I think it's also very easy when you're someone like me who's like, I don't do things the traditional way, to kind of think like, oh, why would I have an email list because emails are so annoying? But reframe that, keeping those first customers that you want to transform into lifetime customers. The email is what keeps those people around and what makes them adore your brand beyond just what you're posting on social media. It just feels like a little hug with everyone that supports my brand. So the next one is to create a whole world from day one, not just a product. I do think we kind of did this very well from day one. Like, I do think the sense of like freedom, authenticity, like colors, I think it's always been there. But I did some work with a business mentor back in 2023 maybe, I can't really remember exactly when, but I did some work with her, and I remember her saying, what you've built is incredible, but you need to be telling the story more, and like this is this whole world for people that dream and want to be off skating and surfing, and she was, you need to focus on building that world more. And so something that I've done in the past few months, I've kind of always done also, is like break our customer down into 3 segments. This year we just renamed them and kind of reframed them, because I think as I get older, the customer gets older, and so maybe we don't have like the festy girlies anymore. That's exactly who our customer is, and so beyond who the customer is, it's about building this world on socials, in our emails, like this cohesive world that exists for our customers and makes them feel a part of it. And I'm so proud of that, and I think it's something that Subtle Poison has done incredibly well. People don't just want product, they want to belong to something. Next one that I have contracts for everything. I pretty much got scammed by a manufacturer and lost a lot of money. I did get a big chunk of it back. Learned a very hard lesson from that, to not just have contracts in place, but like have deadlines in place. So like you need to give exact dates, and also if they break a deadline, they've broken the contract basically, and yeah, there has to be consequences. Also, I made a big fuck up on that one because I used the platform Manufy to source this manufacturer, and this manufacturer asked me to pay off the platform, and I did. And then what actually had happened, I found out from another girl who has a brand that I saw on TikTok, and we figured out that we had the same manufacturer who had taken both of our money. She had basically gone into liquidation, but was taking our money and promising us our product but not doing it. And Manufy couldn't help with any of it at all because we had paid off the platform. Yeah, and also I had no contracts in place. So just have a contract in place for literally everything, like things that you wouldn't think that you will need contracts in place for. Like I have a contract in place with one of my friends for something. It's so easy now, like you can just ask ChatGPT or like make one on Canva. Like it doesn't have to be some crazy big job. Next one I have is do not be afraid to ask questions and also collaborate. I think a huge part of my self-confidence and self-discovery and journey right now is being embarrassed of myself or my business, and I think sometimes it can feel so embarrassing to like ask people things that you don't know. I think most of the time what you'll learn, so many more people are willing to help you than you think that they are, and all you have to do is ask. The worst thing that can happen is that they say no, and then you have like that 10 minutes of embarrassment, and then you move on and you get over it and it's fine. Ask questions about everything. The next one, obviously collaborate with different business owners, collaborate with influencers. Like even here, I feel like, again, I don't know what's wrong with me lately, but I feel so like shy and like unable to put myself out there, and that's something that I'm like really working on, and even doing this video is like a huge part of that for me. Putting yourself out there and just like networking, it's gonna open doors so much quicker for you than you constantly having to grind and grind and grind and grind. So ask the questions, and work with people, especially people who are maybe 2 steps ahead of you. So the next one I have is strategies, budgeting, organization, but also remembering what works for your business. I kind of already touched on that, especially when it comes to the email list, like that kind of full marketing strategy, and especially again, like really understanding a marketing funnel. And I think it gets complicated so much, like people make it so complicated when actually it's something that can be really easy. Like, you think about it, I saw someone on TikTok say like, oh, this brand's ad popped up for me on Facebook and I really liked them on Instagram. I clicked on their profile and I followed them on Instagram. A week later, I got their ad again and I went on their website and I joined their email list. Then from being on their email list, I noticed that anytime they have a drop, it usually sells out within 30 minutes. Then I noticed that they had a new drop coming and I really loved the scarf in one of the drops. So I decided as soon as it was coming, I need to be online as soon as it's coming to shop the product, and then I did. And when you break down the marketing funnel like that, like everything makes so much more sense, and also the customer journey makes so much more sense, and then it makes you want to have the structures in place to make sure that your customers are going to have the smoothest journey beyond just like finding a random reel that you've posted on Instagram and like never looking at your business again, you know? So the patience that comes with the first time someone finds you to when they eventually shop. Once they've become your customer and they see how amazing your product is, they want to keep coming back for more, and that customer retention part is so important. Then we have budgeting. I'm still terrible at this, figuring out, like, I also think like a huge thing when it comes to budgeting and all of that is the fear kind of thing again. I still feel terrified of money, and that's something that I know that I have to sit with and I know that I have to work with, and money doesn't really feel safe for me because of my self-worth piece and probably the perfectionism and the fear of failure and feeling like I deserve it even though I know that I do. Not being afraid to like actually put every single thing on paper and see what money is coming in and what money is coming out, and not being terrified of that fact, especially because like a lot of businesses are not going to be profitable at the start, especially clothing brands. Like, they're product-based businesses and they're expensive. And then I think on the organization part, like especially when you're a one-woman show or a one-man show or one-person show, whatever you identify as, it can be so hard to figure out when to do everything. Really struggle with organization. I think organization and even like having, if there's someone that wants to help, is of course amazing, but even when it comes to organization thing, I now have like a Notion planner where I organize everything, and even though I don't feel fully on top of things right now, I feel a million times better than 6 months ago. And just I have everything in one place and feel like I'm on the road to making that work for me. So also with all of those strategies and organization and all of that, it's super important to remember what works for your business. I think the main thing is just taking all of those things, but like not doing what everyone else is doing because you think it's going to be right for your business. Like, you have to know what's right for your business. Leads me perfectly onto my very last point, which is to trust your intuition. This is something that I'm very much sitting with this year in particular. I think especially moving across the world, and even the year that I had before I left Ireland, moved out of my childhood home, my granddad died, then I moved to Bali, and then I had weird stuff happen here as well. I feel like so much of the past 2 years of my life kind of forced me to stop trusting myself and not knowing what's best for myself. And again, especially when you're somewhere new where you don't really know how things operate, very easy to listen to what other people think is best for you, especially people that have been here for a while. Is where I think there was times where I kind of knew things were the wrong idea, but I kind of just went with things anyway. Like our orange swimsuits, for example, kept fading. I kind of knew in my body we shouldn't produce them fully, but I was like, we're too far in to turn around, like let's just do it. That there was an issue with the old fabric. So half of the swimsuits I can't even sell. Should have really listened to my intuition on this and just demanded that we got new fabric. So that's just one example, but there's been plenty of other times this year where I've thought to myself, like, this is not the right thing for my business, and I've just kind of gone with it because I'm too far in. We've already committed to something, rather than, okay, what is best for my business and in what ways is this going to affect me financially or mentally or physically or any of those things. You always know, and just really sitting with that intuition piece is save you so many mistakes. I think I'm gonna leave it there because my battery is flashing. It's been very enjoyable to just kind of rant to a camera again. All of these mistakes, they've been lessons learned, and I don't regret the way that I've built my business, and I'm just so excited to build it even more. So story is our story, and that's just how it went. But hopefully these little tips and tricks or mistakes that I've made can help you in not making the same ones. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit subscribe. I'm so excited to be back on YouTube, and you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, and you can shop the brand, but I'll leave all of those links below. Yeah, have a beautiful day.